You know who doesn't get enough respect for the Florida Gators in 2023? The transfer portal class. But we are going to give them their respect here today on Locked On Gators.
You are Locked On Gators, your daily podcast on the Florida Gators. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Hello and welcome back to another episode of Locked On Gators, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. Thanks for making Locked On Gators your first listen of the day. We are available daily and free wherever you listen to the podcast. Today's episode of Locked On Gators is brought to you by FanDuel Sportsbook, the official sportsbook of Locked On. Make every moment more. Visit FanDuel.com/LockedOn to get started. Happy Wednesday. Hump day. I'm Brandon Olson. Find me on Twitter at WNS_Brandon. Find my written work with Whole Nine Sports at Giants Country and NFL 33. And like I mentioned, I think that the transfer portal class doesn't get enough love. Specifically, I'm talking about three people that we're going to talk about today. But I think that the transfer portal class as a unit doesn't get enough love. And it makes sense because, they're not the transfer portal departures that make us go, the sky is falling. No, they're not the high school kids that come in and go, oh my goodness, for the next 3 to 4 years, you're going to be a dog for the Gators. No, they're not them. They're the guys that come in and it's like, hey, you do a year or two, you do your time, you get in, you get out, you go to the NFL, hopefully. And that's that, which is kind of fair. I think that's a fair approach to take with the transfer portal because, again, when you go through high school recruiting, like let's say Aiden Mizell, for example. We talked about Aiden Mizell for so long before he was actually committed to the Florida Gators. And then we kept talking about him until he signed his letter of intent. And that makes sense because you spend so much time talking about these kids, emotionally investing in these kids. And with the transfer portal, it's like, hey, I hit the portal 3 weeks later. I have my new school. I don't have time to get to learn these kids, all that. So I understand it. But there are three guys that we need to talk about. And I think Graham Mertz is the first one because it's not even a matter of this is the most important position. He's the best one to come in. He's the guy that's supposed to stabilize this program right now. Yeah, Jack Miller III is competing with him for the starting quarterback job. But for this episode, we're going to work under the assumption that Graham Mertz is QB1 because we should work under that assumption. I want to make that clear. We should work under that assumption that Graham Mertz right now is the favorite to be the starting quarterback. Like if this was betting, we'd be like, yeah, Graham Mertz is probably, minus 250 and Jack Miller's like plus 170, we'll say. So it's not impossible for Jack Miller to get the starting spot. It's not even that improbable. It's just the most probable scenario is Graham Mertz is quarterback one. That's why he deserves that love because he is the most important transfer. I don't believe he's the most talented transfer in this class, but he is the most important transfer because he has, first of all, plays quarterback. So it is the most important position. He's coming in to stabilize this program where, you had Kyle Trask in 2020, great starting quarterback for the Florida Gators in that college season that was just ridiculous with all the COVID stuff going on. Then you had Emory Jones, who not great, Bob. Then you had Anthony Richardson, who was not great, Bob. But now you have someone who, Graham Mertz, has been not great, Bob. But he is hopefully going to be great, Bob. He is hopefully going to come into this program and be much improved compared to what we saw from him in Madison, Wisconsin as a starting quarterback for the Wisconsin Badgers. And he is going to come in and, again, work this offense, operate this offense. I talked about this the other day where him having legitimate experience working under center is too overlooked because he gives you that versatility of working out of the pistol, out of the shotgun, and under center. And working under center, you can have a lot of fun working under center. You can truly have a lot of fun working under center because it also allows you to hide the football a little bit. I know that we always, and by we, I mean Florida Gators fans, myself included, not all fans, but some fans, talk about You don't want the quarterback with his back turned to the defense. You don't want that. Sometimes you do, because it does help you hide the football a bit, especially when you have an offense where they like to use pre-snap motion, specifically jet motion, not really orbiting around the back of the running back, not really doing return arrow type stuff. But when you're running that jet sweep motion, if you snap the ball at the right time, let's say when the receiver's by the tight end or the right tackle, assuming he's coming from the right side, and he's going to the left side, if you snap the ball at the right time, you turn your back, and guess what? You turn your back, you've got the receiver right behind the quarterback, you've got the running back coming up into the lane, and you can, obviously you can't make the decision, not that they're predetermined, but you can kind of figure out and confuse the defense a bit, because it's, well, does the receiver have the ball going wide? Does the running back have the ball going up the middle or wide to the other side? Does the quarterback have the ball and it's a play fake and he's running, or he's got the option to throw the football? So you get to add all that when you work under center. You can do a lot of that from pistol as well. It's just easier to hide when you're working under center. And I think that he's the QB here. This is the first time that the Florida Gators are going to see Billy Napier starting a quarterback in Gainesville that he brought in. That's one of the reasons it makes Graham Mertz so important, that Anthony Richardson was here. The expectation going into last year was that Jalen Kitna would develop and become the starting quarterback this year. Obviously, he's not here because he's stupid and disgusting. So you've got Anthony Richardson was here. He's a Dan Mullen commit. You've got Jalen Kitna was here and was supposed to be the 2023 guy. Dan Mullen commit. You've got Jack Miller that came into the transfer portal but hasn't started the game outside of that bowl game, which, again, we give him, that's out of mind. That's burn the tape. It's useless. So this year, whether it's any QB, really, if it's Graham Mertz, Napier brought him in. If it's Jack Miller III, Napier brought him in. If it's Max Brown, Napier brought him in. The important part of this is that this is the best evaluation tool, or this season is way more valuable as far as evaluation goes from Billy Napier from last season, because this is Billy's guy. This is who Billy picked. This isn't, I'm here with Anthony Richardson. He's a bad passer right now, but his ceiling's insane, so we have to start him. He's a Gainesville kid. Everyone loves him already. The crowd will riot if he's not the starting QB. No, this is Billy Napier evaluated Graham Mertz. Billy Napier evaluated Jack Miller III. Billy Napier evaluated Max Brown. Whoever starts, again, it's most likely going to be Graham Mertz. That is Billy Napier's true test of him evaluating quarterbacks, of him being able to use the quarterback that fits his style. Graham Mertz is the most important transfer portal ad, not just because he plays quarterback. He's the most important transfer portal ad for the Florida Gators because he plays quarterback and Billy Napier picked him to play quarterback. Graham Mertz does deserve his flowers, by the way. I will die on the hill that he is going to be better this year than he ever was in Madison, Wisconsin. Not that he necessarily significantly improved, but that he has a better opportunity to find success. He's got better weapons than he ever had. Even if you're not high on the pass catchers, he's got better weapons than he ever had. Running back, I mean, he had Braylon Allen last year, who's sick, but I'd rather have two great running backs than one that we're just going to run till the wheels fall off. You've got, we'll say, potentially better offensive line. Wisconsin usually has a good offensive line, but this is Graham Mertz make or break year here. Like, you got to show it, because if you don't show it and you're like, oh, I have another year of college, you got DJ Lagway hot on your tail. So you better clean it up. But that's where I'll stand on that. But we are about to stick with the offensive side of the ball to talk about yet another transfer portal ad that I love. But first, today's episode of Locked On Gators is brought to you by FanDuel Sportsbook. It's America's #1 sportsbook, and now's the perfect time to download it with March Madness starting. Like I said, through the conference tournaments, they've been giving out these 25% college basketball boosts. I'm expecting them to do the same thing for March Madness. I don't know it definitively, but I'm expecting it. They also have a beat the bracket bonus bet. So if you bet on it and you miss, then you get your money back, essentially. So they've been doing their thing, and I've been doing my thing. I've been making money on them. In the NBA, De'Aaron Fox, Thank you so much, Josh Okuji. I think it's how it's pronounced on the Phoenix Suns. I don't watch the Suns. I'm not going to pretend to, but I bet on him. Hit 2 threes for me the other night, so thank you very much. He shot 2 for 5, so that was great. But don't miss your chance. Get a no sweat first bet, by the way, up to $1,000 in bonus bets on your first bet. FanDuel.com/lockedon. That's FanDuel.com/lockedon to learn more. Thanks again for making Locked On Gators your first listen of the day. We are available daily and free wherever you listen to podcasts. And like I said, we're sticking on the offensive side of the ball here for a few minutes to talk about Micah Mazzcua, which is how it's pronounced. It's spelled Mazzcua, but it's pronounced Mazzcua. And I think that he is somewhat overlooked primarily because he's an interior offensive lineman. And that's what people like to do with interior offensive linemen. They like to say, you don't invest in guard. Guards don't matter. Guards, blah, 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 blah. No, Micah Mazzcua is a very important player here, especially because he is going to be tasked with replacing the best guard in the country in 2022, the best guard in the 2023 NFL draft, an All-American guard in 2022 in Osiris Torrence. He's going to be tasked with replacing Cybo, and that's a damn near impossible mission because Osiris Torrence, will say, according to Pro Football Focus, was the best guard in the country in 2022. It's hard to replace the best. But I mean, in an ideal world, if you lose the best, you can replace them with the second best, which is exactly what Billy Napier, Rob Sale, Darnell Stapleton, and staff did. Micah Mazzcua, according to Pro Football Focus, in 2022 was the second best guard in the country. So you lost the best guard in the country. You go out and get the second best guard in the country, and you kind of limit that. Like you limit that drop off, which is huge. And who knows? Maybe Micah Mazzcua can get even better, and another All-American guard season. Maybe I don't want to get ahead of myself, but it's entirely possible. But it's also important for Micah Mazzcua because this is an offensive line that just has gone through so much turnover this season. Like, we knew there'd be a lot of turnover on this roster. But going into this offseason, myself and I think most Gators fans were going into this offseason under the impression of, yes, you've lost Osiris Torrence, but you've got Michael Tarquin, you've got Ethan White, you've got Austin Barber, you've got Kingsley Aguakin. I'm not high on, everybody knows that, but you've got a guy that's a returning experienced starter at center coming in. That's huge. You're losing two guys, really, and one guy, really, because it was just Osiris Torrence and Richard Garage. But Richard Garage, we were already like, all right, Austin Barber was replacing him. So you lost one guy that was a significant starter of your top, or a significant player from your top 6 offensive linemen. Like, O-line is going to be stacked again. And then Michael Tarquin hit the transfer portal. Ethan White hit the transfer portal. And, of course, Osiris Torrence and Richard Garage go to the NFL draft. So now you've got to replace multiple spots. You've got to replace both guards and one tackle spot. And that's why Micah Mazzcua coming into Gainesville is a huge stabilizing effect. And I'm realizing now that's the trend here. Even the third segment, it's going to be about stabilizing. So that's the trend in this transfer portal. The Florida Gators are grabbing stabilizing football players for this program that does need to be stabilized. So you brought in Micah Mazzcua, and he's instantly your best offensive lineman. I love Austin Barber. Micah Mazzcua is the best offensive lineman on the team, second best guard in the country, like I said. You instantly replace the best guard in the country. So now, Micah Mazzcua, congrats. You're the best guard in the country returning. Congrats. And you bring in someone who is very versatile as a blocker. You got run blocking, pass blocking. He can block power. He can block wide zone. He can do all of these things that you're going to ask a guard to do, because I understand saying guards don't matter. You don't invest in guards. They're the running backs of the offensive line. You can find them, and if they're not great, you can still make do with them. I understand that. But this is an offense that is going to have a lot of requests for their guards and a lot of responsibility put on their guards. And so that's a very important part to look at them and say, okay, Micah Mazzcua, you're coming in and you're expected to immediately be great, not good, great. And so for Micah Mazzcua to come in and stabilize this offensive line that was supposed to be a strength and has now undergone so much, an impressive amount of turnover, for Micah Mazzcua, that's a huge win if you come in and you live up to those expectations. So Micah Mazzcua, you are a massive transfer portal add where think about this offensive line, how we're talking about them if he doesn't come here. We're talking about Damian George, who is rotational. We're talking about Keonta Goodwin, who is completely unproven. We're talking about Kingsley Aguakin, who is average at best. We're talking about Austin Barber, who was good in his limited snaps. We'll see how he does season long. And this is just completely different because now you can at least look at this offensive line, and no matter what combination you put out there, Micah Mazzcua is going to be starting, and you can say, all right, at least we have one guy that we know is really good and proven. Austin Barber, we know is really good. It's a matter of him being proven, or at least I know he's really good. It's a matter of him being proven. So that's the one guy you got. Imagine if he's not here, how you feel about the offensive line, because wouldn't be great, would it? That's what I'm talking about. We're about to flip to the defensive side of the football, but first, a quick word from our sponsors. Thanks again for making Locked On Gators your first listen of the day. We're available daily and free wherever you listen to the podcast. Make sure to like, subscribe, comment, review, do whatever it is you want to do. Join the Locked On Gators Discord. The link is in the description below. And now we've got one defensive transfer that we're going to talk about as an incredibly important part, and it's Teradja Mitchell. And I understand I want Derek Wingo to be the starting Mike linebacker. I don't care necessarily who's starting because whether it's Teradja Mitchell or Derek Wingo, they are almost definitely going to be the two players that play Mike the most, and they're going to be the two players that rotate pretty frequently. I think that's one of the reasons that Florida went out and brought in Teradja Mitchell and Deuce Spurlock and Manny Nunnery because they wanted to add to a linebacker room that's already pretty young. And now you've got at Mike, Teradja Mitchell, Derek Wingo, Scooby Williams. At Will, you've got Shamar James, Manny Nunnery, you got Deuce Spurlock, and you can throw Jaden Robinson in there as your fourth Will linebacker. So now you've got bodies that you're comfortable with, where last season you had to run Ventrell into the ground on a broken foot, and Amari Burney played a ton because they weren't super comfortable with the depth. Shamar James did play very well, but Derek Wingo and Scooby Williams never really had enough time to get into a rhythm and a flow where they can do that this year because they're going to be playing more frequently. But for Teradja Mitchell, it's not really even about his physical play. It's about the mental part of the game for Teradja Mitchell. Because Teradja Mitchell, mentality-wise, is an IQ player that can identify gaps, identify where the ball is going, and attack it. And that is so overlooked. Like, you don't know how good you have it until you have someone there who's bad at it. Like, let's talk about 2021. Ventrell Miller gets hurt incredibly early in the season, misses the season. And then you've got just a mess there with Mohamed Diabate. And you look at the LSU game and how many times they ran counter trap. I think it was like 14 times for 200 yards. They ran one play. It was insane. It was impressive that they did it consistently and it worked every time, but it was insane. So having someone with that IQ and that diagnosing ability is important. And having Teradja Mitchell there is also very important because he can help Derek Wingo get up to speed. He can help Shamar James get up to speed. He can help Deuce Spurlock get up to speed. Scooby Williams, Jaden Robinson, he can help everybody there. And we're not going to replace Ventrell Miller in 2023. I think most of us Gators fans know you can't successfully replace Ventrell Miller in 2023 because Ventrell Miller at his heart is as Gator as it gets. So it's pretty damn near impossible to replace that. However, you can do your best by adding a player with a similar skill set to Ventrell Miller. And also Teradja Mitchell, one of my things when watching his old tape was I love how quick of a trigger he has. Like, he's just like, oh, a ball, get. Like he just does a great job of that. Putting him in a defense with Austin Armstrong, who's already a linebacker's guy, and is going to say, hey, you're going to trigger down a lot quicker. That's a match made in heaven for Teradja Mitchell. So Teradja Mitchell coming to the Florida Gators is huge because IQ-wise, I truly believe instantly he's the highest IQ player on this team based on what I've seen from everybody that's in that linebacker room. Highest IQ player in that linebacking room. So based on what I've seen, he's the guy that I think of. Diagnosing the play, he can do it. He can do all the intangibles, and he is a good run defender, which is what Florida desperately needs. So bringing in Teradja Mitchell is a massive, again, stabilizing presence in that linebacker room that has also undergone a ton of turnover this offseason. So adding in Teradja Mitchell there is just huge to get this team back on track, hopefully get this defense on track, which they desperately need to do. And Teradja Mitchell is the guy to do it. So when you look at the transfer portal, I get it. They're considered, used toys, we'll say. Show them some love because they deserve every single bit of it. Thanks for making Locked On Gators your first listen of the day. We are available daily and free wherever you listen to the podcast. So we'll be back tomorrow to talk more Florida Gators football. Now, for Locked On Gators, I'm Brandon Olson. Don't forget to follow me on Twitter at WNS_Brandon. Find my written work with Whole Nine Sports, Giants Country, and NFL 33. And I will see you all tomorrow.